ريهام زيدان narrator and voiceover الصوت بكل ألوانه. Captain Echo, defender of planet Earth. Scene 2. The school playground. Danny:
That was the most boring presentation I have ever heard. Captain Echo must be the most boring superhero in the world.
Emmy:
Well, I thought he was really interesting. I'm going to be an environmental scientist when I grow up and help defend the planet just like Captain Echo.
Mrs. Smith and Captain Echo appear. They are talking to each other. Mrs. Smith:
Well, thank you again, Captain Echo. That was most informative. I am sure our students have learned a lot about problems facing our planet.
Captain Echo: Not at all. It's very important that young people understand the damage polluters do to the world. Mrs. Smith sees Danny and Emmy. Mrs. Smith:
Ah, there you are, Danny. Now you must apologize to Captain Echo at once.
Danny:
Oh, all right. I'm sorry for asking you those questions, Captain Echo.
Mrs. Smith:
It doesn't sound as if you mean it. You really are a naughty boy sometimes, Danny.
Captain Echo: That's quite all right, Mrs. Smith. I can remember being exactly the same as Danny when I was his age. That was before I discovered all the bad things the polluters were doing to our planet. Mrs. Smith turns to Emmy. Mrs. Smith:
Captain Echo, I'd like you to meet Emmy Thompson, Danny's twin sister. She is our star student.
Captain Echo: Hello, Emmy. I could tell you were very smart from those questions you asked me inside. Emmy:
I thought it was a really great talk.
Captain Echo: I have just had an idea. How would you both like to come with me after school and help me with some of my work? What do you think, Mrs. Smith? It won't be dangerous. Mrs. Smith:
Well, if their parents agree, I'm sure it would be fine.
Emmy:
I'd love to go.
Danny:
Do I have to? People will just stare at us. And your silly mask and your cap.
Mrs. Smith:
Danny, you must stop being rude to Captain Echo. I think it would be an excellent idea to go with him and show him that you can be a good boy when you want to be.
Emmy:
Come on, Danny. It'll be cool.
Danny:
Well, if I have to.
Captain Echo: Good. We'll call your parents, and if they say yes, I'll come back after school and pick you up. Captain Echo, defender